What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another tutorial. Today we're going to be breaking down an awesome music video, Wiz Khalifa, Millions, featuring a Boogie. I apologize for having missed last week's upload. I've actually been working on a music video myself, as well as a bunch of other 3D projects, which if you follow me on Instagram or Twitter, I'm sure you guys know about. So before we get started, only thing I want to mention, there's a new bundle deal going out called the Creator Effects Pack. I've actually contributed to it. I think there's only a limited amount of days, and there's a big amount of contributors, so if you guys are interested in that, check out the link in the description. It'll give you some more info. My preset pack 3 is included in there. Again, link down below if you want to check that out. Other than that, guys, let's get started. Remember to leave a like, comment, subscribe if you do enjoy. All right, guys, so let's start going through step by step. Like I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of different effects in here, so we're going to be a little bit fast. If you guys need to slow it down, you could always click this little gear on YouTube, playback speed, half it, or put it up, whatever your preferred learning method is. So let's start off with the basics. We're going to talk about creating this background, and then we're going to start getting into the character effects, etc., etc. So starting off, I'm actually going to first set up a dynamic link in Adobe Premiere. So in the bottom left, I'll click this new item button. I'll create a transparent video, and then I'll drag that into my timeline. I'll right click on it, and I'll click replace with After Effects composition to get started. If you guys only have After Effects, you can of course just start within After Effects. So let's delete the transparent video and start from scratch here. Now let's bring in our background. So if you just look up on Google, trippy, swirly backgrounds, go to images, we're gonna click tools here, and we're gonna go to size, and let's put that on large so we can have a nice HD background. You can also, if you want to you can also go to usage rights, and you can search by Creative Commons licenses, which is great. So if you're doing this for a commercial project, make sure you're aware of that. So I'm going to right click and save some of these images here. Once I've downloaded that, I can click show in folder, and I can drag that directly into After Effects and place it here. So let's talk about some of the basic tools you can use in Adobe After Effects for getting this swirly background. So the most basic one is the liquefy tool under distort. You can search that in your effects and presets and drop it on your clip. Great thing about this is there's a bunch of different built-in presets here, so you can pretty much just grab and drag things. You can swirl them, you can bulge. So experiment with that. I'm only going to be using this twirl tool. So let's open up the twirl tool options, and let's increase the brush size. And then I'm just going to click and hold to start twirling this. Let's also increase the brush pressure. Now, if you see whenever you're twirling, you get this kind of edge that's popping off like that. All you need to do is click S on this layer and just scale it up a tiny bit. We're going to scroll to the end of our timeline here, and I'm going to go to where it says distortion percentage. I'm going to click this little toggle animation button just to set a keyframe. Then let's slide all the way back to the beginning, and we'll set that at 0 and click enter. So now we've created a keyframe. So if I open this up and I open up effects, liquefy, you guys are going to see these little keyframe markers here. All right, so I let this get a little bit of a RAM preview going, and if I press play, you can see the swirling that we have going on here. If you want this to be a lot faster, just take that end keyframe and just drag that a little bit in. So that's the basic tool for setting up some of the swirling pattern. We're going to revisit liquefy later on when we get to some of the character effects, like the crazy eye stuff. So let's keep moving along here. I want to talk about this stretched pixel look before we add in our subject characters here, and we talk about all these different effects. This stretch pixel is used in a lot of different ways here. So let's set it up on the background. So it's super easy to pull this off in After Effects. All you need to do is go to your effects and presets and search for CC Scale Wipe. Go ahead and place that on your clip. Then in your effect controls, all you need to do is mess with the settings here. So if I take the stretch value and I bump it up, you're going to see how that's reacting with our clip. You can make it a little bit if you want it to be more elastic, or just pull it fully up if you want it to just be full stretched pixels. You can change your direction with this value. So let's set it to something like that. And we can also set keyframes as well. So maybe we'll drag to the end and we'll keyframe our stretch at that position. We'll go to the beginning, and we'll set that back to 0. Now you're going to have an animation where it stretches the background, and this is going to be super useful going forward as we apply this effect in different ways. Also, this wasn't in the video. I think it's always great to mention you can plop a little normal After Effects glow on here, and we'll just take the glow radius and bump that up a little bit so we can get this nice vibrant glow. That's of course optional. I think it looks great though. Let's maybe lower the glow threshold a tiny bit. All right, so our background is complete. Let's go ahead and add in some characters, some subjects to our scene. So let's talk about working with green screen clips. If you guys are working on a music video, you probably already have these, but if you just want to practice, you can always go to pexels.com. I'm going to look up green screen, and I've already downloaded a couple of these here. So if you want, a link to this will be down in the description. I'm going to go ahead and drag this into my comp. So we'll drag it into After Effects, and I'll place it in a layer above my background. So let's get rid of the green background here. I'm going to go to my effects and presets, and I'm going to search for the key light effect. So placing that on my clip, and then taking my screen color and taking out the green. This clip was already lit very well. The green screen is pretty much perfect, but most of the time you're going to run into some issues where you might need to do a little bit of extra work. I made a full video talking about green screen effects in the past. If you want to check that out, I'll link it down below. It has a lot more in-depth info. But say, for example, if you just want a quick little cleanup, I'll drag in this clip because I know this one has a little bit of a different key. So if we drag key light onto here and we try and take the green out in this clip, you're going to see how there's a little bit of grain here from our key not looking proper. So to fix that, what you can do is always hide the visibility of all of your other layers here. Now we're going to click on these three little red, blue, and green dots right here, the show channel, and we're going to change this to alpha. So now you can see the alpha channel in straight black and white. The goal here is always to get as close to a silhouette as possible. So if you go back to your effect controls here under screen mat, where it says clip black and clip white, let's open those both up. I'm going to take clip black and I'm going to slowly start to raise that until that grain goes away. And then I'm going to do the same with clip white. I'm going to slowly start to lower it until that grain starts to go away. So now it looks pretty much like a crisp silhouette. If you click back here and put it on RGB, you can see now we don't have any of that grain and we have a nice crisp key. Now there are a lot more steps if you want to get it perfect or if you need a lot more cleanup. So again, if you need to, go check out that video that I mentioned. It'll be down in the description. I think it's always good to add a little curves effect onto here and just color correct it to try and match the lighting of your background. So I'll try and add a bit more contrast. Because this is a green screen music video and we're building the composition from scratch, all of these layers are already isolated. So you can go to something like footagecrate.com. They have a bunch of different atmospheric assets here that you can use. There's a lot of free versions. This is unsponsored. I just know that this is a good place to get some stuff. So I already searched up smoke and I downloaded this. So I'm going to drag that into After Effects and let's take that smoke asset and place it in between these two layers. So we have it behind our subject. So that's one way to add some different atmosphere into your green screen shots. So now let's start talking about some of these character effects. One of the character effects which you see a lot is these clones. And this is going to be extremely easy because we're working with green screen footage. So let's start setting up some of these clone effects that you see throughout the video. We'll pop back in here and all you really need to do, let's make sure we name all of this so that we don't get confused. Background, and this is our subject. We're going to select our subject layer, Control D to duplicate it. If you want to create a cool little cloning effect, all you need to do is grab this layer and drag it a little bit to the left. So that's going to offset the time. So now you're going to see whenever we play this, you have these two clones going on here. And make sure you're aware of the order of the layers. So for example, if I take this top subject layer and I place it below, you're going to see how his hand pops out. So this way you can keep the arms in order. We could always keep adding more. So I'll click Control D again to duplicate. And I'll just do the same thing. I'll just drag this a little bit to the left to offset it. You can see how we're able to create some of these different clone effects. Now it looks different here because he's not walking towards the camera, he's just raising his arm. But if you want to get some of the clones like you see here, that all really depends on what they're doing in the video. Another thing you can do is you can slow down the speed of the clones. Whenever you have any of these scenes where you have some different clones and their speed changing in the video, you're going to have the most smooth motion if you shoot footage that's 60 frames per second or above. If you have anything that's 24 frames per second, whenever you slow it down like this, it's not going to look as crisp. So keep that in mind. You could always go to time and then time stretch. If you want to slow it down, you put it up something like 150. And again, this is 24 frames per second. So this is going to be pretty choppy on that playback. So make sure you are using high frame rate if you want the slow-mo. All right, so let's talk about some of these other character effects. Like for example, these duplicated eyes right here. This is going to be pretty easy to pull off. So let's go ahead and set it up. We're going to select this layer and we're going to click Control D to duplicate it. And I'm going to right click on this duplication and rename this to right eye. And I'm going to call it how I see it. I'm going to say this is the right eye, even though technically it's her left eye. It's just easier for me that way. All you need to do is go up and grab your pen tool in the top left. And let's go ahead and draw a little mask around her eye. So once you've done that, select that right eye layer and we're going to click M on our keyboard to show the mask. Let's right click on that mask and click Track Mask. Once you've done that, this little tracker window should have popped up. Default, it should be on position, scale, and rotation. Let's just make sure we're at the beginning here and click play. All right, so if I hide all the other layers, this is what we have here. We have the isolated eye tracked. So let's bring these back. And what we're going to do is we're going to grab this right eye layer, We're going to click P on our keyboard to show position. And we're just going to take this horizontal axis and move it down a little bit. So that looks great, except you have this rough edge here. So if you're going for some sort of like collage look, you can keep it like that. But if you want to blend it in, select the layer, click M again to show that mask. And we're going to pop this open to show our feather. And let's go ahead and just add some feathering. You can click this little button to hide the mask here so we can see what this looks like better. And you'll see just by bumping this up a tiny bit, we blend that in with her face and we get a pretty cool result. So let's do the exact same on the other eye. We're gonna go ahead and select subject, Control D to duplicate it. We'll rename this to left eye. And then let's create a mask for our left eye. So we'll connect that. We'll click M to show that layer. And then again, at the beginning, right click, track mask, click play, and that's looking good. So again, we'll click P, we'll lower that down. And this is where it gets a little difficult because you see there's a little bit of perspective. So it's kind of blocked by her nose. So I'm gonna actually scale this down a tiny bit. So I'll click S and I'll just scale. And then let's open up these transform options here. And I'm gonna take my anchor point and I'm going to move that up and try and position that correctly. And then of course, I'll click M. We want to add that same amount of feather so we can blend it. So we'll feather that edge and that looks pretty good. Also, I didn't mention this earlier, but a quick way if you want to use the same backgrounds, but change it up a little bit. If you select the background once you create your second scene, you can go and just change any of the twirl animations just to switch it up. So say I could just change this to something like vertical displacement and get a completely different look in the back. And I added a little HLS effect. So if you search for HLS in your effects and presets and you drop that on there, you can just crank and change the hue so that you get a different combination of colors. Or of course, you can repeat the steps and create a completely new background from scratch. All right, guys, so let's build on this a little bit more. Let me show you how you can take this stretch effect like we did with the background and apply it to characters in this weird way. I'm gonna go to my project bin and I'm gonna create a new composition and we'll name this stretch person. And the key for this is we want to give this a good amount of height. So I'm going to put the height at something like 3000, which is pretty overkill, but it gives us room to build on the composition and stretch him out. And I talked about this a little bit in my slit scan tutorial. This is going to be pretty much the exact same thing, except we're using CC scale wipe. You can use the slit scan method if you'd like. So let's go back to here and find our subject. We're going to Control C to copy him in, and then Control V to paste him into this composition. Now let's start setting up our stretch. So first off, I'm going to duplicate this clip. So select it and click Control D to duplicate it. Let's grab our box selection tool and I'm going to go ahead and just draw a mask around here. So grab the bottom and we'll draw a mask as well. So we're going to kind of extend and have this part stretched up. I'll select the top clip. I'll click P and I'll just grab my position and raise it. Now I'll select my bottom clip once more, Control D. Let's right click and rename this to stretch. Now let's look up CC scale wipe and place that on our stretch layer. So if I put up the value, you see nothing's happening. That's because we need to take the center and place it around here. Let's put the direction at 0. Now we can take the mask here just by selecting it. And then if we hold down Control, we can actually move this mask and you see how we can extend as far as we want. Now the key is just blending these two together. So let's select our top layer. We'll click V and we'll just move it over here. Maybe click S to scale it up. And now what we want to do is we want to select that top layer, click M, and then we want to add a little bit of feather to the mask here so that we can blend these together. So that's the basics of being able to pull this off. I did it again here and you'll see a different result using the exact same steps, just messing around with the mask a little bit. In this result, I did it more at the neck up. So before we bring this back into our comp, you always want to select everything here, right click and pre-compose it. We'll name this stretch. Now you can select this pre-comp, Control C to copy it. And the beauty of pre-comping it in this way with the wider resolution is now whenever we come back in here and Control V to paste, you're gonna have this 3000 width composition and it's pretty easy to position things the way you want. So that's how you can use the stretch effect on a person in particular, not just with the background. All right, so now let's talk about some of these little plugin effects that you see thrown in here. There's a couple of different things. I'm going to mention some plugins. Some of them are paid, but I'm pretty sure the majority of them are cheap. So I'll have links below. Again, none of this is sponsored. So if we look at this clip here, you see we have a little bit of channel glitch going on. We have a little bit of pixel stretching. There's a plugin called Pixel Stretch by Satori. I'm not sure the price of that. I'll probably put it on the screen right here once I look into it. You can change the pixel size, which is pretty cool as well. And of course, you can Control D to duplicate, delete the pixel stretch off the bottom, and you can change the blending mode of the top. And there you go, a very trippy look here with all of our stretched pixels. Another one I really love is Glitchify, by Cinema Spice. I'm pretty sure this one's under $25 as well if you want to look into it. This one has a bunch of stuff built in, but in particular, if you don't want all the craziness that's going on here that's popped in by default, you can turn off a lot of this. Let's turn off transform speed, let's turn off color glitch, and let's turn off image glitch. All I really want is this channel glitch here. That's what's going to give you these spiky edges here. Alternatively, on my website, I have this 3D glitch After Effects template, which you guys can download if you'd like, and that gives you some really cool, interesting 3D perspective glitches. So if you want to check that out, I'll leave a link below. Let's get into some of the cooler looking stuff that we haven't spoken on in the channel, such as this iridescent skin that you see here. I really like how this turned out. You get that sort of thermal look as well as the glow. So here's another little look at it. So let's hop in and talk about that. So the main components of this is creating our iridescence thermal look first and foremost. So I created a tutorial talking all about different thermal flashing effects, how to create them using the colorama tutorial. If you really want to dive deep into the customization to tweak the look, then go ahead and watch this. This really fleshes it all out. But essentially all you need to do is look up the colorama effect under color correction. And first let's actually duplicate it. So select it, Control D. Place the colorama on. You'll see we have these jagged edges here on our green screen clip. So we want to go to modify, and where it says modify alpha, make sure that is unchecked. So it's not modifying the alpha channel, and we should have a nice smooth edge. So here's where you can really customize the look and how this is going to blend together. So there's limitless combinations you can do with this because you're going to be playing with your blending mode as well as everything else. So I like putting it on divide. So you can cycle through your different blending modes to see how that's going to look. You can also go to this output cycle here and use any of these presets. You can change any of the colors specifically if you want a more purple look. So with some tweaking of the settings, here's how I got this look. Again, I put my blending mode on divide. Here's how I set up my output cycle. Input phase is just normal. Phase from lightness. Now let's go ahead and add that glossy liquid look to the skin. So this is probably the first time I've talked about this effect in over 3 years because this is one of the very first tutorials I made on this channel. So if you have the Sapphire plugin pack, there's Sapphire Distort, Sapphire RGB, Sapphire Chroma, and don't worry if you don't, because we're going to talk about an alternate method. These plugins are what were used in that ASAP Rocky LSD video to kind of distort everything. And if you lower the blur lens here, once you've placed this on, you can get this over top of the skin. So let's select this layer, click Control D to duplicate it, and then we'll delete the colorama off of this top, and we'll put it on normal, and then we're gonna right click and rename this to liquid skin. And then we'll place in our Sapphire Distort. And I'm actually gonna use the Chroma one so we can get some color in there. So lower down your blur lens so that you can get that over top. And it really is just about messing around and seeing what you can get. You guys can also, again, mess around with your blending modes. Also take this rotate warp and you can change that to get some different variations. So I'll put that on something like 85. Another thing you can do is drop a little glow on here. So we'll show you that before we show you the free built-in way to create this liquid sort of skin. So you can take our glow radius, bump that up, and you're going to see how that affects the bottom layers as well. So that just goes to show some of the tools you can use to recreate something like this. Now, if you don't have the Sapphire plugin, which I'm guessing a lot of you don't, let's go ahead and delete Distort Chroma off of here. And we'll delete the glow for now as well. You can actually use CC Glass. This is the native plugin that the Distort derives from because you can see it's a very similar looking effect. You're just gonna have to tweak it in a different way. So it definitely requires a lot more tweaking, but it is viable. We'll change the light height here. All right, so let's talk about some of the cooler distortion that they have going on here, such as this. I really love this, and this is actually really easy to pull off. So let's hop into After Effects. All you need to do is select your layer, go to Effect, you go to Distort, and you're going to go to CC Flow Motion. You'll see these two little anchor points here, and if we just take the amount in our effect controls and pull up, where we have these infinite little stretched areas, and if we take the amount too, you'll see we can stretch over there to the right as well. You can also choose where you want these to be, and you're going to get a really trippy looking effect where these are kind of moving through time. Everything's warping and connecting together. So I love how that turned out. All right, guys, and for the last few effects, some easy to distort stuff. For example, if you want to have something like this where everything's stretching towards the screen, that's just an easy little optics compensation. There's a bunch of clones in here, so let's just click Control D for a bunch of these. Select them all by holding Shift and clicking, right click and pre-compose. And then you can place any of your distortion effects. So let's place optics compensation, click reverse lens distortion, and then crank that up. So easy as that. Again, just experimenting with what you're able to do. changing around your clones, messing around with your comp. There's also this little effect at the end here. I made an entire video revisiting slit scans, so I'll leave that in the description if you want to check that out, or you can just look up the slit scan plugin if you want to create something like that just by dragging and dropping it in. This was all in After Effects, but most of these effects that I did show you can all be done in Premiere. After Effects is just the superior choice here for creating these compositions, especially with green screen. All right, guys, and that's about it. Thank you so much for watching. If you did enjoy, please leave a like, comment what you'd like to see next, and subscribe if you guys are new here. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for supporting, and I'll see you guys in the next one.